All right, what's up, Mets fans? It's your boy CP here, joined by Zach as we break down a little bit of a day after post game. We do apologize about the post game being scratched last night after the game last minute, but we are here in the early morning, approaching afternoon on the day after, recapping the 4-2 victory in Colorado for the New York Mets. And it was not a pretty game by any stretch of the imagination, but Francisco Lindor comes through with some late game heroics off the bench, still dealing with that broken pinky toe. Zach, I appreciate you taking the time here to join in from your phone with me today. How are you doing? You're on mute. I think you're on mute, Zach. Oh, we lost Zach. We lost Zach. We can't hear Zach. We can't hear Zach. No, no worries. As Zach tries to figure that out, at least I can't hear him. Chat, let me know if you guys can hear him or not. But as he tries to figure that out, he's coming back in, going out of the stream here. It was a really, really fun game to watch, I guess, in Colorado for game one. I would say something where listen, Kodai Senga, we'll start with Kodai Senga as we take a look at the box score here because Kodai Senga didn't pitch a bad game, but we talk about some of the efficiency issues with Kodai Senga. There was a lot of traffic on the bases from what I gathered from Kodai Senga last night, and he was able to, I guess, work his way around just as he's been doing. We talked about in the pregame stream yesterday about how good he's been against opposing hitters when they have runners in scoring position. I mean, opposing hitters are batting what 111, 115 in certain situations with runners in scoring position off of Kodai Senga. And this is the final line for Kodai Senga last night. 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run, all the way up to 109 pitches for Kodai. I think this is the most pitches this season that we've seen a Mets starter throw in a game. 5 hits, 6 strikeouts, and 2 walks given up, with the ERA going to 1.59 after yesterday's game. But you know what? As we got Zach back here in the chat, I was just talking about Kodai
I'm back.
Senga's his performance, and we were just talking about on the pregame stream yesterday, talking about Kodai Senga and his some inefficiencies, but his overall numbers look so good because when he does get traffic on the bases, he is really, really tough for opposing hitters to pick up. And he's got a really quick delivery to home plate. And you saw Francisco Alvarez was able to go ahead and throw a base runner out yesterday as well, which is really good to see with Kodai Senga on the mound. What did you make of Kodai Senga's outing? And I was also talking about the box score here with 109 pitches thrown for Kodai over those 6 innings pitched. How did you assess his performance yesterday in Colorado?
I love the performance. It wasn't he didn't have his best stuff. I think he definitely ran into some troubles at points, and he was a bit he didn't have the command of the ghost fork that you would like to see. I mean, I know it looked good. The stat line. I think it was his most efficient pitch. It was the best pitch he threw last night. Always is the best pitch he throws. But it was good to see him get that deep. 6 innings. We expect that from him. Uh, on a a start to start basis. But it was good to see him get that pitch count up there. That's something we haven't seen since his rookie season. Early on in his rookie season too. So with someone that needs the 6 day off, the extra day rest to pitch as well as he does, getting deeper into games and being able to run that pitch count up is pretty key. And if that's something the Mets can continue to lean on throughout the season, that would be big to take some stress off the bullpen. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I know. Did the box score with him? Otherwise, it was good to see him work out of jams. That's something that he's kind of done all season, gotten into and out of jams, and I was impressed. I was impressed with what he did pitching in a tough climate, tough atmosphere, for the first time.
I was gonna say, I thought that was his first ever career start in
It
Coors
was.
Field, right?
Yeah, it was.
So, you couple that with the fact that the Mets offense, and we'll get to the Mets offense here in just a second, they were putting people to sleep pretty much for the first half of the game, even beyond the first half of the game because they didn't really do any damage until that 7th inning. You know, I think under those circumstances, Kodai Senga, even given the traffic that he was allowing, and after the Moniak home run, the solo home run, he did a really good job keeping his team in the ball game because at that point, there could be a little bit of discouragement, especially when you get runners on. It's like the offense is not giving me any runs to work with here. And I'm pitching a hell of a ball game, but nothing to show for it right now because of one mistake pitch that he gave up to Moniak. So I was really impressed because listen, Kodai Senga is a true pros pro, man. He goes out there and he battles. Yeah, he needs the extra day of rest, but he is pitching really well. And he is proving why the Mets should be going to a six-man rotation or should be having a six-man rotation for the longevity of this season because you get this version of Kodai Senga. I think that there'd be a lot of question marks around this fan base and asking why are we going to a six-man rotation if he wasn't performing. But Kodai Senga at this point or to this point is performing. And so therefore nobody can really question that, especially because this Mets rotation is really deep, especially with the personnel and the guys that they got coming back in Montas and Minaya. This is a really deep rotation. And I think that at this point, I understand the conversation surrounding getting into a rhythm, getting into a routine every fifth day. But I think that for some of these guys, maybe they aren't complaining about an extra day of rest because it's going to keep them fresh and healthy and able to pitch deeper into the season where we saw some guys fizzle out later in the playoffs last season, like Severino and Mania. So, pitching wise, Brazaban comes in, gets into a jam, uh, gives up the run. I think Colorado was up 2-0 at that point. So, the bullpen did its job, but they also were dealing with traffic on the bases. And this is a professional team. This is exactly what we said in the pregame stream. I know they came into that game 12-50, right? They dropped to 12-51 after that Mets 4-2 victory, but that's a professional team. Even their lineup was able, they looked rejuvenated. They
Hmm.
looked,
Hmm.
just like energized after that sweep they got against the Marlins. I know
Yeah.
it's a three-game set, a three-game sweep, a three-game winning streak for the Rockies, and 25% of their wins this season have come off of one team being the Miami Marlins. But that's a team that they know they're not playing for anything, but individually they are playing to keep and win jobs for seasons to come out there in Colorado as that organization tries to figure things out. And they were playing like they were playing for something individually, trying to keep those positions. So that's something where it's not just Colorado. The Mets are going to have these series where they play against the lowly teams that they know they should beat, but they cannot take their foot off of the gas pedal because again, they are playing for something individually over there, and that makes them play that much harder. So that's all I'll say on that. But really good job later in the game from Ryan Stanek, especially again, pulling a Houdini act, as
Yeah.
Rob likes to call it, with bases loaded. He gets helped out by a nice play from Brett Beatty at third base on the line drive catch to double up the guy from third base. And then he strikes out the guy to end the inning to get that third out. That was really huge for the Mets because if that is even at least one run scored, I mean, the trajectory of the ball game changes right then and there. And I think that the Mets were able to carry the momentum over after they saw that they were able to get out of that jam. And that's what kind of helped the offense lift things up and get those 2 runs on the board. So, yeah, anything that you saw from the bullpen with Brazaban, Stanek, and obviously Edwin Diaz, who has been absolutely lights out ever since the early goings of May. He's been really, really good. Very impressed with Edwin Diaz. And this is the version of Edwin Diaz that we're going to need all 2025 long for the Mets to get to where they want to be at.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the good. Diaz, again, a very, very good night last night. He had, what was it, two strikeouts or just the one? I can't remember. But he's been phenomenal since that rough stretch to start the season. I mean, he won the reliever of the month in May. I don't think he allowed a single earned run in the month of May. And then obviously he had the one bad game here this month in LA where he let up a home run, but or a run, whatever, however it's scored. That's gonna happen as a reliever. The game is bend don't break. Don't lose the team game for your team. At least keep them in it, or don't give up the lead. So we've seen Diaz since the end of April really kind of adjust to that, and then kind of revert back to his dominant self. And Gary and Keith even said something that I found to be interesting. In Diaz's 2022 season, where he was incredible, he won the reliever of the year award. He had a 17K over 17 Ks per nine. This year, they're like, oh, he's not really even throwing to that this year, and they're like, oh, he just has shy under 14 Ks per nine. That's incredible. I mean, when you're talking about a pitcher not pitching up to their standard, so to speak, and their K per nine is over 13, that's spectacular. So that shows Diaz is definitely turning back into his former self, and his injury woes are behind him, because I think that's what was hampering him last year. Just kind of we're still recovering from that patellar tendon injury. And then Brazaban and Stanek, Stanek has had some rough patches this year. I think that could be a really good thing for him getting out of a jam like that, because few and far between you get out of a bases loaded jam with no outs and not a single run scoring. I mean, I'd say more than 50% of the time the opposing team is going to score there. And then Brazaban, he's been so solid all year. I mean, if he's gonna let up runs here and there, and give up a lead or whatnot, as long as it doesn't come back to bite us in the end, and it doesn't become a recurring theme for Brazaban, that's gonna happen as a reliever. You're gonna give up runs, and it's just bound to happen. So it's good to see the offense pick them up. When we're so many times they're picking up the offense. So it was good to see that, and I'm also curious to see how often those guys have pitched in Colorado, because, like we said with Senga, it's a different atmosphere. Literally, the altitude is so much higher, the air is thinner, so it's tough trying to throw your pitches there. If you're getting overworked, or with the pitch count or the pitch clock now, you can really run into a situation where you're gassed a lot quicker there. Having to work as fast as you do now with the pitch clock. So that could be a problem for them adjusting there. So good to see them get out of those jams, and we still ended up with the win. It didn't come back to hurt us, thankfully.
Yeah, that Brazaban is funny because he reminds me of not like pitching style wise, I guess, but
Yeah.
every time he gives up a baseball that's clearly crushed, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Hilliard with that extra base hit off the wall yesterday, Brazaban just immediately just points to the sky, and it reminds me of Hansel Robles every
Oh my
single time
god.
he would give up a freaking bomb, and he just point to the sky like it's a routine fly ball. That was funny. So that gives me a remembrance of that. For those of you all who remember Hansel Robles, this is a little bit of a throwback for this Mets organization. But
I
listen,
don't want to remember
Braziban
Hansel
has been,
Rumpus.
and we all know how his tenure ended. But listen, at the end of the day, Brazaban, you're right. Brazaban has been solid. Absolutely. He's been killing it this season. No complaints there, especially with the second half, with the mess that he had,
Mhm.
last season coming over in that trade from the Marlins, where he had a killer first half and then kind of fizzled out, trying to find his footing in the Mets organization. He has come back rejuvenated and is really pitching to his capabilities because his stuff is nasty. And Ryan Stanek, who's the veteran, has championship pedigree over there, former Houston Astro on the World Series teams over there. Like, this guy, I think that he is one of the most important pieces to this bullpen's sustained success. Like Edwin Diaz, 100%, no doubt about it. But I think that if Ryan Stanek can step up and really be a late inning contributor and
Mhm.
keep runners off the bases, because listen, if he allows traffic, you know, sometimes I'm not the most confident in Ryan Stanek to strand runners, because so far it hasn't really happened outside with the exception of yesterday. It seems like, he has given up a lot of traffic, and we know that he doesn't have the fastest delivery to home plate. So a lot of guys will steal off of him. But I think that if he's able to turn it around and turn into a very dominant version of Ryan Stanek and is able to continue to put hitters away with his 100-mile-per-hour fastball and that lethal splitter that he's got to pair with
Mhm.
that, that's going to be really huge for the Mets bullpen. But all in all, got to be impressed with the Mets bullpen as a whole collective unit
Yeah.
for this first half of the season here, over the first 60 something games, 64 games of the season here up until June 7th. So let's talk about the offense because,
Yeah.
listen, it was a tale of two halves essentially in this game from the offense. And you see here with the box score, I am not kidding you. This team and this offense almost put me to sleep. They were 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position, going into that Pete Alonso at bat in the top of the seventh when he drove in 2 runs with that 2 RBI double. 0 for 8. And the most abysmal runners in scoring position execution that the Mets, I guess showed us yesterday was the bases loaded, no outs, 3 strikeouts in a row from the bottom half of the order. And that's where I wanted to start with, because obviously Nimmo goes 0 for 5 with a strikeout yesterday at the leadoff spot. Second day in a row, second game in a row that Francisco Lindor was not able to start. But we'll talk about him here in just a second as he comes through late in the game. But that bottom three, right? They go 2 for 12 collectively with what, 5 strikeouts between them two. Really good to see. I will say Ronnie Mauricio with that opposite field extra base hit. And we were talking about it before he went live, Zach. He thought that ball was out. It was
Right.
smoked. It was smoked, ended up being off the wall for a double for him. But he almost just watched it a little bit out of the box, thinking that it was going to carry out of there. But, in that situation, I understand that Brett Beatty, when he struck out with the bases loaded, 0 out at that point, that was a really bad call. The ball was off the plate.
Two
No
really
doubt
bad
about
calls.
that. It was off the plate. But these guys got to pick each other up. And we came into the pregame yesterday really excited for that bottom half of the lineup with Beatty, Alvarez, and Mauricio, some of the young guys getting paired next to each other and seeing how they do. That's a situation where that's your time to shine. You got to come through there, even if it's not a base hit, right? We're asking
Mhm.
you to just do the job, do a job. I don't care if it's a fielder's choice. You beat out a ground ball at first base and get the runner across. I don't care how you do it. You got to execute there. So
Yeah.
that was one thing where I wanted to say, and it wasn't just those guys at the bottom of the order. It was the collective Mets lineup up until that point. 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position against a really bad team. I mean, Rollison, I think it was the starter for Colorado,
Yeah,
also
the
just
opener.
pulling some Houdini acts, and he actually did impress me. He's got some good stuff being a lefty, but I think the Mets offense needs to do they need to continue to focus because I know that Eric Chavez called that meeting with the lineup and basically calling them out, saying, hey, listen, why are we not hitting with runs in scoring positions? It's becoming a really big pattern with you guys. What's going on? They really need to continue to stress that as a collective unit, as a collective organization, that these situations. You cannot come up with donuts in those situations because against better teams, that's going to come back to bite you. It didn't in this game, thankfully, because you're playing the Colorado Rockies. But if that's against, let's say a Phillies team, let's say a Padres team, Dodgers, like those situations are going to come back to bite you. So that's all I'll say on that. But a little bit more on the positive side. Polar Bear Pete Alonso getting things going for the New York Mets in an 0-2 count, no less. A lot of hitters, when they're down the count 0-2, when the offense has been stranding runners all game long up until that point, will start to press. We'll start to get over anxious, over swing, and probably lead to pop outs or strikeouts in that situation and not getting the job done. Pete Alonso has been doing this all season long, as Gary said in the broadcast during that situation in that game. He has been coming up with clutch, huge hits for the Mets all day long. And this offense really has gone when Pete Alonso is finding success. So what did you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, to start off with Pete, another great performance by him. I mean, he just pulls through when the Mets need him the most, and he's putting on what is proving to be the makings of an MVP type season. I mean, obviously there's some players with some better numbers, and we're there's still a lot of time left for to see what plays out, but his what he's doing not only in non RBI situations, in non high leverage situations, but then in those high leverage situations, he's been our best hitter with runners in scoring position, one of the best in the league, has the most RBIs in the major leagues. And what he's doing in high leverage situations, in negative counts, it's just incredible. This is not something we've seen from Pete Alonso in the past. We've seen him kind of shell up when he gets into those negative counts where he is behind and he needs to expand the zone to stay alive. But he is now showing the ability to stay within himself and not give in to the pitcher and wait for his pitch, being able to foul off some tough pitches and wait for something that he can drive into a gap or maybe over the wall. So that's just been incredible to see because he's been the spark plug to this offense so far. And then just quickly before I get into the bottom of the order, Soto with a very nice night on base 4 times. He even had and his one out was a deep fly ball to left field, which that he catches that a little bit lower on the bat towards the barrel. That ball's out of there, and we're talking about a 4 hit game on base 5 times with a home run. So you can see that things are starting to turn for Soto. They have been for some time, and I think this is going to be the the last step before we see him finally really take off. And then the bottom of the order, it was just a frustrating night. And I'm actually of the three of them, the that didn't have a hit in Beatty is the one that I thought had the best game of the three. You know, he looked good defensively, and we're talking about them hitting. But then the fly out late in the game very easily could have been a home run in 11 ballparks. It would have been, or an extra base hit, and I'm sure in a few others. And then the strikeout. That's not only to go down 0-1 versus being 1-0 in a count off a ball that was actually further off the plate than the strike three call, but then to get that strike three call against him, that just changes the at bat. You know, now instead of starting 1-0 or and now we're starting 0-1, you got to widen the strike zone. So he did that on one pitch, and then then he's down in the count. He ended up being 1-2 when he struck out, and just to get a call that was just horrible. Not only was it outside, it looked to be like it could have been called low too. That's tough for him to kind of be in a situation like that. And then Alvarez being the most frustrating because his first two bats he looked good. He was trying to get the ball the other way. The first at bat with the single the other way, and the other one he was trying to find a hole there. Ended up hitting it to the first baseman who was playing off the bag, not protecting for the stolen base, not playing on the bag. So he just missed finding some open grass there. But then to kind of revert back to what we've seen from him in the past and pulling off and really just starting the bat up too early and selling out for the fastball with runners in scoring position is not what you want to see. You want to see that continued approach to try to work the ball the other way because even if he gets out in those situations, whether it's a pop out, a ground out, or whatever, the approach is what matters. And to see him revert there is kind of it's disheartening for someone I truly believe in. And Mauricio,
Yeah.
there's not much to talk about. I mean, I thought he looked better last night. The at bats looked a lot better, in my opinion. He seemed to not be guessing up there. He kind of seemed to be more reactionary instead of going in with his mind made up on whether to swing or not. He obviously did strike out the one time with the bases loaded there in the what was it, the top of the sixth or whatever, whenever it was. And then the double, which was nice to see. I would like to see some better at bats and see him work the ball the other way because you saw what he can do. His power to the opposite field's incredible. That was a home run in 29 of 30 ballparks. So this is someone who can drive the ball the other way, and if he can consistently do that with the power he has, I mean, you're talking about someone who could be a true talent for this team going down the stretch.
But the thing is that we talked about on the pregame with those
Yeah.
guys at the bottom of the order, like what the game plan has been historically so far this season for opposing pitchers. And in that situation where they stranded the bases loaded with nobody out, it was the same exact thing. They were getting a heavy diet of breaking balls, including Brett Beatty, right? Ronnie Mauricio, same thing, and Francisco Alvarez pulling off the baseball. And it's just so funny. It's not funny. But it gets repetitive, right? Which then becomes funny when Keith Hernandez is in the booth just saying he's pulling off the baseball, he's pulling off the baseball, he's pulling off the baseball when Francisco Alvarez is up. So, we've seen that good approach from Francisco Alvarez, his ability to drive the ball the other way. And that's at this point, right? If he's not pulling baseballs for home runs, which he hasn't been really doing consistently ever since his rookie season, then incorporating some opposite field hitting and situational situational situations, I guess I should say, and just poking a ball the other way, right? Like you said, if it gets caught, so what? There's a high likelihood that that runner comes through anyways, even if it's a ground ball to the right side, that gets a job done, right? And I'll take a bases loaded, at that point it was already one out, so it wouldn't really be the situation. But if you're talking about bases loaded, or a guy on, let's just say bases loaded, nobody out, I would take a ground ball double play to get the runner over rather than a strikeout at that point. I
Yeah.
truly would. So get the job done. Situational hitting has to be a little bit better from those guys. But let's talk about some other guys. Like, let's look at this box score because guess what? Starling Marte is still, and I've been on his case. I have been on his case this season, right? Especially early on in the season. But he puts together, I know he struck out 3 times, but he's been getting on base in that 2 hole, especially when he's been getting the opportunities. Another multi-hit game. You already mentioned Juan Soto on base a multitude of times there, 3 for 4 to walk, run scored. Pete Alonso, we've already discussed. And Jeff McNeil, also another game where he gets on base 2 times with a hit and a walk. Really good to see them just get on base and accumulate that traffic and then hand it off to a guy like Francisco Lindor coming into the game as a pinch hitter for Tyrone
Yeah.
Taylor and delivering a 2-out, 2 RBI go ahead double, broken pinky toe and all. That's what a captain does. He stays ready. And we were wondering, is he going to be available at a certain point, in this game if it came down to it? We were wondering that in game 1 when he sat out against the Dodgers in that series finale. And they were saying he's going to be day to day. There's not going to be an IL stint needed, but he was going to take a couple of days off. You know, we still don't really know what the outlook of this injury is. I'm assuming if he came into the game yesterday and he did that, I'm sure he's going to be fine. Maybe next series, maybe the series after that to play consistently. But really good to see the captain doing captain things. And I'm going to call him the captain of this team because, listen, he should be.
Yes.
I know that he doesn't have that official title, quote unquote, but he definitely should be. And that's exactly why he should be, because as a veteran player, right, watching your team struggle all game long against a team that they should have been beating at that point with the multitude of missed opportunities, staying in the game and being ready when your number is called late in the ball game with a 2-out hit, no less. We're not even talking about a no-out hit, a 1-out hit. We're talking about a 2-out hit with runners in scoring position. Really, really, really good to see. Shout out Francisco Lindor. Absolutely 100%.
Yeah, that was just an incredible, incredible moment there by Francisco Lindor. I mean, this is someone who is the heart and soul of this Mets team. I mean, whereas Pete Alonso's the spark plug, Lindor's the heart and soul. I mean, he is the captain, and I think at one point this season, maybe July 19th, David Wright's gonna be passing that title down to him, and it'll be an official thing going forward because, and deservedly so, because he is the embodiment of this team. He's always there to answer to the media, whether in good times and bad times. When he's hitting well, when he's hitting poorly, doesn't matter. He's there. He's there to pull through for the Mets when they need him most, and he did exactly that last night. And you even saw, he still had a little bit of a limp, but he did look a little bit better. He looked like he was moving around a bit better, and but then he also was taken out for the pinch runner, rightfully so. But that shows that he's definitely not 100%. He has a broken pinky toe, but he's probably not at the level where he can probably play a full 9 innings to play in the field, hit and run the bases. So he's probably still only available for those pinch hit moments, and he needs a few days off, and so be it. The Mets, they need to find a ways to win without him, because these things happen, and knock on wood that this isn't a thing that is a recurring theme this season with Lindor, and that he is able to uh, get healthy and play through the pain for the next, 4 to 6 weeks, I think it would be, with the broken pinky, and then that's it for him, because this is someone that the Mets need to head the top of the order, not only because he is one of the best players on their team and in the league. He is. It would help them lengthen the lineup, because then you can move Nimmo or Marte down in the order to hopefully separate the Beatty Mets from each other, because stacking them up like that last night proved to be problematic with the inability to drive runs and even really get on base last night. So I think once Lindor's back, hopefully we'll be able to see a more complete lineup, and then Vientos hopefully in a couple weeks too will be able to really. We'll see what this lineup can do at full strength, because we haven't really had it with everyone hitting on all cylinders, and everyone healthy, because we've had bruises here and there, and then some guys slumping, and it seems like everything's starting to come around, and then Lindor goes and gets hit on the foot and breaks his pinky toe, but it seems like it's not going to be a big issue, and hopefully it is not.
Two things. I want to go back
Yeah.
to the Edwin Diaz discussion just for a second, because you're right. He did not give up an earned run in all of May. He actually didn't give up an earned run until that Dodgers series since April 23rd of
Wow.
this season. So that's a long time. So he has been absolutely on one 100%, and he has been doing a really good job coming in for these save situations for the New York Mets. So that's an important note on Edwin Diaz and his continued success here in 2025. After, I guess, a little bit of struggles in the very early goings of this season, a lot of people were kind of curious how he would bounce back, and he has done so in a major way. But also the point that you said with the lineup, right? Until you get the reinforcements back with Lindor being able to play every day, until you get Mark Vientos back, whatever his timeline's going to be with that hamstring. I'm curious to see how often, and Luis Angel Acuna is included in this, how
Yeah.
often Mendoza is going to go to a variation of the lineup like last night with the quote unquote baby Mets, the younger guys, all stacked in a row together. Because I do think that at this point, if that's going to be a recurring pattern with what they did yesterday as runners in scoring position, you got to get a guy like maybe Tyrone Taylor. I know he took the over 3 yesterday, but you got to get more of a veteran guy in between at least one of those
Mhm.
combinations there down the bottom of the lineup. Maybe even Jeff McNeil, although
Yeah.
recently Jeff McNeil has been batting in that 5 hole consistently. So I'm curious to see if Mendoza is going to keep stacking the young guys or not based off of what's been transpiring here and what transpired last night. So a couple comments in here. Appreciate everyone being here. Sco, Carlos, Namar, Brad, Oliver. Appreciate you all. Ethan and D saying yo, yo, yo. What's up? I know it's an early stream. Please make sure to smash those thumbs up buttons for us. It's an early stream. We didn't have the live post game yesterday, but we wanted to make it up to you all for a little bit of a day after recap with kind of an ugly but exciting game against the Colorado Rockies in game 1. So we figured we got to go up there and talk about it on stream. But game 2 is today, an unusual, I guess, maybe nighttime game against a opponent like the Colorado Rockies, 9:40 p.m. start time. So it's going to be a late one. And I believe they play a day game
Yeah,
tomorrow. I
it's like
mean,
a
it has
three
to be a
o'clock
day
start or
game
something.
tomorrow. Yeah, something weird like
Three
that.
forty.
So, yeah. So it's 9:40 followed up by 3:40 to end this series. We got Clay Holmes on the mound today. Again, we were talking about everything that you needed to know from last night, from the lack of hitting with runs in scoring position. Definitely the Mets, as Sco was saying, the team shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with in the 9th inning. And that is very true because, like I said, up until that Pete Alonso hit in the 7th inning, they were 0 for 8 with runs in scoring position, which is simply unacceptable. But at that point, if that happens, which it did, it's good to see the situational hitting at least come alive later on in the ball game with the big names like your Juan Soto who gets on base, Pete Alonso who delivers the 2 RBI double there in the 7th inning, and Francisco Lindor coming into the game off the bench delivering the next 2 out RBI hit for the Mets. So bad things offensively in the first half of the game, better approaches and more clutch hitting in the second half of the game, which is something positive to work off of going into today's game. Clay Holmes is going up against Carson Palmquist. I'm not going to lie, I have no idea who Carson Palmquist is. I have no idea what he possesses in terms of his arsenal of pitches, but I'll let you all figure that one out because I do think that potentially Zach and Rob might be doing a pregame show today later this evening ahead of game 2. So I'm sure you'll be hearing a little bit more of what transpired today from Rob's perspective. But we figured we'd do this stream here as well. So anything else that we need to talk about as it pertains to yesterday's game, Zach, as we're just over 33 minutes into the stream?
Nothing specifically on yesterday's game. There's one thing I am kind of curious to see going forward, and that is where Paul Blackburn falls into this scenario, this
Yeah.
equation here with the whole pitching staff, because as he said and Mendoza said it seems like he's going to be a bullpen arm, at least like going forward, not just when Manaya and Montas come back, but like from now, like from his last start, he was just there to allow the extra day of rest because the Mets had a stretch of 10 games in a row. Now, with this off day coming up on Monday, and I think no, there's no need for a sixth starter for what will be a couple weeks, if I'm not mistaken. I wonder if they decide to go to him in a situation where you can almost have a built-in off day for the relievers with him going an extended period of time. Whether it's 3 or 4 innings, that would be something big that the Mets could use because while I do think this bullpen has been great, I think they are a bit overworked, and you're kind of seeing that here. I think aside really from Diaz, everyone is kind of showing signs of breaking down a bit, and I think some extended time off for the bullpen, some of these top relievers would be much deserved. I would love to not have any of our high leverage guys throw a single pitch until midway through the national series. I mean, that would be optimal because I want them fresh for what'll be I think 3 or maybe it's 4 straight series in a row that are going to be pretty tough between the Rays, which is not necessarily as tough as the Phillies and the what will be and the Braves, but they are still a good team with a good record. And while the Braves don't have the best record, we always, that's always a tough series going to Atlanta and even them coming to New York. So let's figure out a way to keep those bullpen arms fresh from now until then. That stretch of
Yeah.
games.
Absolutely, 100%, and I think that Paul Blackburn, that's a really good point by you, because I think that Paul Blackburn will be very crucial in terms of having that happen, right? Allowing that rest for the bullpen arms, and that's where a lot of people, a lot of people in this fan base were like, "Oh, we don't wanna see Paul Blackburn coming back, like, what is he really gonna do for this team?" Well, you saw what he did against the Dodgers first and foremost in his first start back against a really good lineup. And also just that versatility, right? Being a veteran guy in this league, and having that experience, like he doesn't really have much bullpen experience in his career. I think we had the discussion earlier on this season, but I think that he is a guy where I don't think he even cares at this point where he pitches. He just wants to pitch, whether it's a starting job or whether it is coming out of the bullpen as the long man. So I think that that's going to play, and he's going to play a very crucial role in that. But some notes around the league, and you're right, with the Braves, like the
Hmm.
record doesn't speak to how they've been playing as of recent. They drop another heartbreaker in
Oh
extra
yeah.
innings against the Giants yesterday on a wild pitch, but they've been playing a lot of close ball games that they just simply haven't won. It's been kind of a reverse and inverse of the Mets, who have been winning the close ball games. The Braves just simply haven't been doing that. They've been lacking the clutch hit to end the game. Clearly, with the wild pitch yesterday, the Phillies also drop a game on a walk off to the Pirates yesterday. So the Mets are now 2.5 games up on the Phillies in the NL East. So it's like, even with the record being what it is, you're going to be seeing a lot of the Braves here in the next coming weeks. The Phillies again, as well. They're a little bit of a different team. I know that they've been kind of a little bit on a downslide ever since they took that division lead, and the Mets took it right back from them. But they're a little bit of a different look team since when they first came to Citi Field and got swept by the Mets earlier this season. Um, yeah, it's just going to be really good and close baseball games coming up, and I think
Oh
that
yeah.
this is, and as we said in the pregame yesterday, kind of a lot of carryover from that stream. This is a series against the Rockies where it's good to get these reps in, but like take it seriously. Like don't overestimate or
Yeah.
underestimate the competition, because these reps are going to be crucial for when you actually go ahead and play these better teams, especially for some of the younger guys like Mauricio, Beatty, Alvarez, etc., trying to get things going.
Hmm.
So that's a very important note too. And also, really good stuff. I know you want to talk about in the post game yesterday.
Yeah.
We didn't get a chance to do the post game, but let's bring it up here. Mania is coming back at some point. He
Yep.
started his rehab assignment. I'm not sure what the final numbers, the
Wasn't
final line
pretty.
was. Wasn't pretty, but who cares though? Like who cares?
Get,
Like it's good
get
to see
out of
him back
this.
and pitching.
Exactly. Get out of that start with healthy, able to go in the next 4 or 5 days, and that's it. Because I don't care how he's pitching against single A players in Brooklyn. He's there to get reps in and strengthen that arm up so he can pitch a full workload, and that's all it's about. I'm more concerned about how he looks when he's throwing 4, 5, 6 innings in AAA. If he's coming out of there healthy, if he's pitching, if his velo and everything is staying up there and his command is staying true deeper into games when he's getting full games in AAA at the end of his rehab assignment. That's what's more important. This is basically just go out there, throw a bit, and you know stay healthy. Basically just get the
Yeah.
reps in. And he had some tough luck behind him. I think it was like 2 or 3 errors behind him. So nothing too concerning as long as we escape that. Staying healthy. That's all it's about.
Yeah, and Montas is a little bit more of the same. I think Montas is on a faster track to get back to Manaeus, but he hasn't really had pretty numbers down there in his rehab starts either. But again, I mean, I it's not like I've been watching the rehab start, so I'm not really gonna speak on, bad luck, no command, whatever, but at least it's good that they're going through this process, and if all's okay injury-wise and they're feeling fully healthy, good to start to see a picture where these guys come back. And there's gonna be some tough decisions that need to be made, because you're not gonna Senga, Peterson are gonna be here. Griffin Canning, I mean, you can't take him out of that rotation. I'm sorry. With the way that Griffin Canning is throwing right now, I think it'd be a very tough ask to take him out of that rotation. I think Zach is back here. Something weird happened. Um, Listen, it's good to see the reinforcements coming back, and also to stockpile onto the good news that we've gotten from Montas and Mania beginning their rehab assignments. Brooks Raley, as of 5 days ago, right, has started facing live hitters as well in his journey coming back from that Tommy John surgery that cut his season short last season. So, you know, it's good to start to see the reinforcements coming back on the horizon over the next month or two as we head into the deadline, and then the Mets make the corresponding moves with whatever they have planned, whatever David Stearns has planned for this trade deadline. But Mets first NL team, excuse me, because the Tigers are on one as well. They're having a really good season out there in the AL, but the first NL team to 40 wins, improving to 40 and 24 after last night's win. They gain a game in the standings on the Phillies, 2.5 up. You know, it is June. Little bit of standings watching incorporated because it is getting into those summer months where the schedule is getting tougher, and you got to really see, you know, what's transpiring both in the division but also in the wild card. And yeah, it's really good stuff. I know that it wasn't the prettiest win, but that's not really discouraging me because the Mets have an opportunity to come out there again tonight, right, in Colorado, and really put the hammer down like they should against a lowly Colorado Rockies team that, again, has nothing to play for as a team, but individually they're hungry and they want to solidify themselves for future years to come in that organization. So 4-2 final score, 10 hits to 9 in favor of the New York Mets. Good defense as well. We didn't really talk about the defensive stuff, but I was really impressed with Brett Beatty defensively. You know, Francisco Alvarez had the caught stealing through a runner out at second base. Juan Soto has been playing really good defense in right field. He actually, I think it was an RBI, if I'm not mistaken, from Moniak, but he's able
Yeah.
to get him trying to extend that into a double. And Juan Soto, like, he's not going to be an all-world defender in right field. There's going to be plays where he definitely frustrates us because he's a little bit on the slower side out there, not much explosiveness when you compare him to the likes of Tyrone Taylor covering all that ground in center field. But listen, he is doing his job in right field, and he's making a concerted effort, at least in my opinion, to become a better defender, which has been the one area that everybody has kind of knocked him on, you know, of his game in the first, you know, seasons. I guess he came into the league at 18, 19, so he's already approaching year
19, yeah.
7, 8, only at, at 26 years
It's
old, which is
wild.
absolutely insane. So still some room to grow defensively, but I think he's making that effort. And I really do think that this team is just gelling. You saw the vibes. They were great in Los Angeles. This team is celebrating. Pete Alonso's rejuvenated in the clubhouse, and the dugout, I should say. And listen, a win's a win's a win. It was ugly.
Exactly.
You'll take it because it's a 162 game grueling season. I don't know how many times I have to say this on this show, is that this is a grueling season. You know, you're going to be facing lowly competition and you're going to lose and drop some games that you should have won. And the Mets have already been on the losing side of these types of games like last night, right? Against teams like the Diamondbacks, the White Sox, etc., the Pirates. But really good to see them win another close ball game, and that's something where the Mets have been really good this season, is closing ball games out in the later innings. So that's going to be it for us on the show. I definitely appreciate you all being here on this Saturday morning, approaching afternoon, around 11:45 a.m. here on the East Coast. Make sure to smash those thumbs up buttons. Subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't subscribed already for more pregame, postgame coverage, maybe some day after recaps if we can't do a postgame just like this one. And yeah, appreciate all the support. And I appreciate everyone who comments in the live chat. Zach, I appreciate your time. Final thoughts before we get out of here.
Yeah, let's just make today a little bit easier. Let's not have it be such a nail biter coming down to the final innings, because this is a team, while they still are a major league team, we should be beating pretty handedly. So no reason to give us Mets fans some heart attacks and the need to take a visit to the cardiologist the next day. So let's do that, and let's find a way to keep that bullpen rested. Let's get out early. Let's let Clay Holmes get deep, and then just throw someone out there just to basically eat innings because we're up so much. Come the later innings, because this bullpen can use it with some tough games ahead. And yeah, thanks for having me on, Chris. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Sorry everyone else, but
No worries.
yeah, it's great to be on.
Oh, and this is my final thought too. Great point
Oh
by
yeah,
Carlos. What a slide. How did we go
yes,
this whole show without mentioning the agility, the acrobatics of
incredible.
Pete Alonso, the polar bear. What a slide to get that fourth run home and get Lindor an extra RBI. And also
Mhm.
the most underrated thing about that play is
Soto.
the veteran presence of Soto directing him. There was a play in particular early this season where the same situation applied, but the Mets, I forgot who the runner was actually called out, and he would have been safe if he slid into the inner part of home plate. But Luis Angel Acuna, who's still a young player, was nowhere to be found on deck, right?
Mhm.
Directing the runner where to slide. Complete 180 with Soto directing Pete Alonso. That's really good to see. That's like something that you don't talk about enough, right? As a baseball fan, it's kind of a lost art, but that matters. That absolutely matters. If you've played the game, you get taught that. Tell the runner where to slide because they're not looking at the ball coming in, or at least they shouldn't be. And it's really tough, especially if you're expecting a mini collision. It's scary for a runner. So direct them where to slide. Juan Soto did it. And Pete Alonso came up with a great slide, and he ended up being safe upon video review. So appreciate you all being here again. Let's go Mets. It's going to be game 2 today in Colorado, Saturday, June 7th. I will not be a part of any streams today because I can't. I got some stuff to do, some errands to run. But keep an eye out for Zach and Rob
Rob,
potentially on
yeah.
a pregame post-game stream today as well. So appreciate it. Let's go Mets, win game 2 and take the series. Looking for the sweep tomorrow. Peace.
Yes, sir. Let's go, man.